Hey everyone, my name is Cassie Tanks. I am the Digital Humanities Assistant at San Diego State University's Digital Humanities Center. Today we're going to go over how to use Adobe Premiere Pro to resize and reposition graphic files. Now, videos, images, and other text that you put onto the screen are a graphic file in Adobe Premiere Pro, and you'll see them as pink files down here. We're going to achieve this repositioning and resizing using keyframes. A handy way to think about keyframes as a starting line and a finish line in a race. We set up that first keyframe to tell Adobe Premiere Pro when we want an action such as a resize to start, and then we'll set up an ending keyframe to tell Adobe Premiere Pro when we want that resize to finish. As you'll see, setting up these keyframes is pretty simple, and I'll walk you through it step by step. But before we do that, let me give you an example of what we'll be doing today. First, I'm going to mute my audio tracks so that way you don't hear me speaking twice. So right now, we have the original video bed. Right here, you can see that in that blue. And I move this cursor over in the timeline window a bit. And it's playing, and you'll see when I establish keyframes to have it not only be resized, but repositioned. Do you see how it went from being full screen to being in this corner? This can be handy if you need to talk about the video in your video or anything else. So there's a lot of different applications for this. And now you'll see how at the end, I have set up another keyframe where it goes from being in the corner to being full size again. When we're working with these keyframes, although I am showing you how to do it with a video file, you can apply these to any file and any graphic that you're working on in Adobe Premiere Pro. You're only limited by your creativity. So let's go ahead and get started. To begin setting up keyframes to resize and reposition this video, we first need to open up the proper workspace. I'm going to select the file that I want to apply these effects to. You'll know that a file is selected because there'll be a white highlight around it. So you can see here in the bottom, this file in view 1, the file that I want to resize and reposition is selected. I click up here. This one is selected because it's highlighted in white. So it's a good way to make sure that your correct file is highlighted. Look for that one that's highlighted in white. Now that we have the file highlighted, we're going to move up to the Effects workspace. When you change workspaces in Premiere, your workspace windows will rearrange. That's no big deal and totally normal. And as a reminder, you can drag and shrink the individual little windows inside this workspace as needed. Since I don't need this essential graphics, I'm going to just kind of scooch that over so that way we have more room. I'm going to adjust that to fit. Perfect. So now we're going to set up keyframes. Your effect controls should open up in this window here. If it doesn't automatically open up, just click Effect Controls and it will. This is the window where you can apply and control the various effects that you're going to apply to this file. In this example, we are going to apply both a resizing, and we're going to change the scale, and a repositioning, we're going to move the file. Let's start with resizing it. Click to open up the FX motion options here. Then I'm going to move the cursor to approximately where I want to set that starting keyframe, the starting line for my resizing. We'll stay right about here. We'll give it a little bit of time. I hope you notice that when I move the cursor in the timeline, the cursor in this mini timeline in the Effect Controls window moved in sync with it. This will help set up the keyframes and make sure that's matching within my commands within the timeline window. So now that I have the time where I want the effects to begin, we're going to turn on and establish that first keyframe. Click the stopwatch next to Position and Scale under FX Motion to turn on that first starting line keyframe. You can see that right here. You'll always know that keyframes are enabled when these are toggled on and they're blue. Just a warning, if you click these and toggle them off, you will get a warning that it will delete all existing keyframes. But luckily, it gives you a chance to say, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, so we have this first keyframe established. Now we want to set up when we want it to end. So I'm going to scrub this along, and I want the video to be both resized and moved by the time this first image pops onto screen. So I'm going to just move that back a little bit right about there. And this is where I want my finish line to be. Let's start with the reposition, let's start with the scale, the resizing. There's a couple of ways to change the scale. You can either hover over and click and scrub back and forth. So I'm just holding my mouse down, moving to the left to shrink it, the right to enlarge it. Or if you already know approximately what size you want to be scaled down to, you can just click it and type it in. So let's say about 25%. And now when I did that, you can see that a second keyframe has been established in the scale or the resizing time here. So let's scrub this back. And we'll see how as we pass the keyframe, there's a starting line. It's going to begin the process. And there's the finish line keyframe when it's done. So let's watch how that looks in real time. So here we are. You're discussing the dancers, contemporary, modern. And then I've established that first keyframe, and it's going to start to resize. Boom, right there. And it finishes by the finish line. Awesome. Now we're going to do the same thing for the position. We already established that first position keyframe. I'm saying that right here, I want it to start full screen. But then I want it to be repositioned by the time the resize is finished. So I'm just going to line that right up right there. And then now I'm going to click to on screen here in our final product window to highlight this graphic file, this video. Do not grab this crosshairs here because all that is going to do is just change the center. We don't necessarily want to do that. What we want to do, let me Control Z to undo that. Instead, what we want to do is move the whole file, not just the center. So I'm going to click and drag this to this bottom corner right about there. And now you can see that a blue line is going to show the path. So if you wanted to, you could have it do all sorts of stuff. Like maybe I want to go here, and then maybe I want to go there. So you can change it, and I'll show you which path it's going to take. But for now, I want to just go to this bottom left corner. And when I let go, another position keyframe has been established. So let's just go ahead and gently scrub this back. So here, before we hit the starting line, it's full screen. We hit the starting line, and it initiates not only the resize, but also the reposition. And by the time we hit these finish line keyframes, it is in place. So again, let's scrub back. And I'm going to hit play to see what that looks like in real time. And you can see it hits that first keyframe and it begins not only the repositioning, but the rescaling too. And there it is. So we have set up keyframes to change the position and the scale. We'll follow that same process to enlarge the video at the end. So once we've talked and discussed about the images on screen, let's say you want the video to enlarge again. So I'm just going to tighten up right here. I want that to initiate about the time that the images pop off screen. So we're going to set up those first keyframes. It already is in the position and scale that we want it to be. So I'm just going to click. Oh, let's make this bigger so it's easier to see. There we go. I'm going to click the center button here to establish keyframe. So now I've started another starting line right here. Then we're going to follow the same process. I'm going to move the cursor along. I'm going to set up my final keyframes here so that we have a little bit of time to grow. Let's start with the scale just like we did before. I want to be 100%, so I want to fill the screen again. There we go. And you can see a second keyframe has been established. And then let's change the position. We're going to do exactly what we did before. We're going to click outside of that crosshairs and drag it so it fills the screen right there. And you can see a second keyframe has been established. So let's just move that back and we'll see how that works. I hit that first keyframe. It starts resizing and repositioning. By the time we cross that second keyframe, it's finished. So let's see what that looks like in real time. It hits that first keyframe and it starts enlarging and filling the screen again. So there you go. We use keyframes to not only resize a video, but also to reposition it. You can use this process to resize and move any text, any video, any image that you incorporate in your project just by following these same simple steps. If you have any questions, please reach out to librarydh@sdsu.edu. There are also multiple tutorials, there are slideshows and videos that not only give you a tour of Adobe Premiere, but also introduce you to other editing basics. Happy editing!